Hello and welcome to this video on prepping your furniture ready for the furniture upcycling workshop. With us we have once again we have Michaella, who is going to show you the process of cleaning, stripping and sanding and getting your furniture ready for the class. So I'll hand straight over to Michaella now. Hello Michaella.
Hi guys, thank you very much for joining us today. As Chris very kindly already said, we are going to go through some of the basic furniture prep that we would do in the normal classes if we weren't in lockdown, just so that you can have a go at home and hopefully join us when all this stuff's over and done with. So there will be a couple of extra or different things that you'll see in this video just because of the way that it's been. First and foremost is with everything at the moment, extra step anti-bac. Because all the furniture that we use or all the items that we use is second hand, and we're trying to recycle as much as possible. You don't know what's happened to this item of furniture, you don't know its history. So the very first and most important thing at the moment is have your hands clean and get your furniture wiped down with some anti-bac. So I'm just going to do this just now. I've got one of these tables, which is actually out of a nest of 3, and I've got I quite like that it's got nice leather on the top here. We're going to sand all of the table and prep all of it except this bit. We're going to leave this bit as it is. But the very first thing that we're going to do is wash it down. So get yourself some sort of disinfectant spray and just give it a very, very thorough clean and wipe down to make sure that you're removing any residual dirt or oil marks or anything that will be nasty and unwanted when it comes to your paint and your prep work. Sorry, there's a very thin counter I'm trying to work on here. One good thing to get in the habit of, whether you are just cleaning or whether you're prepping your furniture, is to actually start with the upside down, because we do this when we get round to the painting bit. It makes it much easier to cover your whole item in paint in one loop. So if you can get into the habit of starting even with cleaning and sanding, having your furniture upside down and then turning it the right way up, you'll find it just becomes habitual and it makes your life a little bit easier. So after the anti-bac, we've then got this is sugar soap. Now you get this in various forms. You can get it just in a spray like this. You can buy it neat, where you would have to water it down and dilute it slightly. You can also buy from places like B&Q just wipes, sugar soap wipes, so that you can use them straight on the furniture. Now we have already anti-bac, so the reason that we're using sugar soap is it's more to focus on oils. So oils and anything that's going to repel your paint. So the anti-bacs for cleaning, this is more for preparation. You really need to make sure that there's nothing on there that's going to stop your paint from sticking or that's going to give you any problems a little bit further down the line when we've done all our prep work. So we're just going to give this a good clean over with sugar soap. Again, I'm just using the neat one, so I just have to literally spray it on and wipe it off. But you will have to change your method just depending on the kind of variant you're using, but it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward regardless what one you use. Make sure that you get in all these bits. If you do find that you've got oil on some of your furniture, there is different things that we can do to combat that, but we'll go over those a little bit later on. Ring marks, especially at the moment, if you get any ring marks on your furniture, just keep an eye on them, because we'll need to go back over them and just give them a little bit more attention before we start painting. So now we've got that scrubbed down with your antibac and your sugar soap, the next thing that we will be doing is we will be sanding. In the classes, if any of you have joined us, then thank you very much, first of all. But secondly, you'll notice that I always do 3 different layers of sanding. The reason for that is not because you need to sand the furniture 3 times, it's to keep myself right so that I don't miss any bits. If you feel confident that you just want to sand this once, then that's fine, you can do that. What we're looking for from the sanding is we don't want to take the shine off the furniture completely. So what we're looking for from your sanding is a key on the wood, which just means lots of scratches that your paint's then going to be able to stick to. So the best thing to do when you're sanding is go in circular motions. I get the packs just from the sort of local pound store, and it normally has several grades, different different thicknesses of sandpaper in the one pack. So that's all you need, and it's about £1 for the whole pack. So I would normally start off with the lowest number, because the lowest number has got the biggest bumps in it. So it's going to, the lower the number, the bigger the scratches, the higher the number, the finer the scratches. So I'm going to start with 100, then I'm going to go up to 150 and probably about 240 after that. If your grades of sandpaper are different, that's fine, don't worry about it. Just as long as you get scratches all over this furniture for your paint to stick to, we'll be fine. So let's get sanded. If you have any trouble with your hands, you can also get little sanding blocks which you can wrap this round, which might make it easier. Again, they're very cheap. I think it's a pack of 8 or something for £1. But as I said, what you are aiming for is circular motions. So when you're sanding round and round like this where possible, because I do understand that it's not possible to sand in circular motions all over certain bits of furniture. There will be bits that have maybe decoration, or like these are quite hard to sand in circular motions. So instead we'll just go up and down and make sure that we get in the little grooves here. But where you can, definitely make sure that you're going in circular motions for sanding. We'll just crack on with this. So as I said before, where possible, start with your item upside down. I did mention that this table has leather on the top, just so that you can see here. Now, what you can do is you can section this off so that it's kept as a separate area if you don't want to go over. Me personally, I feel like if I really want to give this a good sand, then I'll probably just bang into the masking tape that I would use to mask this off anyway. So I'm just going to leave it and either paint or decoupage over the top of this piece later on. So when I'm sanding this, it's just circular motions right over the top. What can be a lot easier as well for these details is just fold your sandpaper. If you find that there's bits that are quite tricky to get in, just fold it and use the sandpaper in the natural shape that it wants to get into the places that might be slightly more difficult. Same with these bits. Again, we're not looking to take the shine off, we just need all of it scratched as much as possible. So we'll do that with the 100 all over, and then with the 150, and then I'm going to go up to 240. Next layer, 150. Again, circular motions. I should probably mention that this technique is the same no matter what kind of wood you're working on. So whether the wood's been painted, it could even be a vinyl that you're working on, in which case just be careful you're not chipping it off. But you can still sand it and you can still prep it the exact same way as we would do this bit of wood here. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch via transition, or just drop a little question down below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Don't forget your little edges as well. So for example, on this table, there's a little bit of decoration here. So I need to make sure that I'm also scratching in between here, because anywhere that's got a sort of a varnish on it, you'll find that the paint will repel from. So it will just come off if you don't prep the surface correctly. And in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I prepared earlier. So this we have sanded over in 3 different layers, and you can see here the colour is still very dark. So I hope this makes more sense now, or puts in context that you're not looking to remove all the colour. You know, you're not making it to look a lighter shade. You're just looking to scratch it as much as possible. I'll just give you a little close up here so you can see. So that's the sort of finish that we're looking for once you've done your 3 layers of sanding. Now, instead of, don't be tempted to wash it down. I know you will be, but don't. We need some of that residual sawdust for the paint to stick to. So instead, what the best thing to do would be to either get a dry cloth or to get a dry paintbrush and just go over it very quickly, just to remove the excess of the sawdust, but still keep enough for it to help your paint to stick to. So this is really just quickly just trying to knock off the excess, because we don't want to wipe it all down completely. We're just knocking off dust particles that don't need to be there. While we're at this point, if you can notice things like ring marks on the top from oil burners or cups of coffee, things like that, candle holders, just now is the best time to prepare for that, because if you just paint over it, it will repel the paint, and then you're going to have to do the same process again, whether it be the sanding and the painting or whether you've finished the item completely. A couple of different methods you can use. One is to use a purpose-for primer that we use for furniture. So we would effectively use it as a sealer. So we'd use it to lock in whichever mark it was that was left on the top of your furniture. So if you have a ring mark or an oil burner mark here, for example, we would sand down to this stage, dust it off, and then we would paint it with a little bit of sealer just to lock that in, so that then we can start priming and putting the colours that we really want to see on a bit of furniture. Funner method, if you're an outside type of person, and if you're over 18 and if you're quite capable of handling these sort of things, what you can do is use methylated spirits and a sponge, rub it over the area that's showing the oil, set it alight, and repeat this, and that draws the oil out of the wood and eventually burns it away. After that, you'll probably be left with a lighter ring, which will look dry. You'll know when it's finished because it will look dry. You'll be able to see the difference. Excuse me. But that would be the 2 methods that we use to prevent any oil or tea stains from coming at this stage. Once we've got to the stage where we have cleaned down with antibac or a bit of furniture, we have washed it down with sugar soap. We have sanded it 3 times, starting with it upside down, turning it right way up, and with 3 different grades of sandpaper, and now we have dusted any just severe excess of sawdust off. So painting. In the interest of lockdown upcycling, shall we say, we're only going to use one kind of paint and then your sealer. Normally, if you came on to the classes, we would recommend that you use a purpose-for primer, and if you have that lying about, that's wonderful. If you don't know, don't panic. It is recommended that you would use furniture paint or chalk paint for this sort of project. However, if you just have a ton of emulsion lying about at the moment, that is what we shall use. So what we're going to do, as stated before, you start with your item upside down. Now, this is a very, very nice counter, so I'm not actually going to paint this, but I will show you what we do in the process of. So you're starting upside down, and start with these brushes are just normal brushes. Again, you get out the pound shop or your local sort of dollar store, so very inexpensive. That's all you need. You don't need anything fancy. The kinds of paint that you can use, my favourite chalk paint is this one, this brand, which is Everlong, now renamed Sarah Jane chalk paint. So chalk paint has a higher chalk content, which is why it is called such, and that means it will give you a sort of matte finish as opposed to being satiny or shiny at all. However, it's your bit of furniture, paint it how you like. Also take heed to what colours you would like it. With the first layer of paint, that is your base coat, so that's your primer. Regardless of what colour or kind of paint we're using, it is going to be your primer. That's what we're using it for. So just be aware, if you want part of your furniture to be white and part to be black, that it's maybe better to use a lighter undercoat and a lighter colour for your primer on the bit you want white, and a slightly darker colour on the bit you want black, just to make your life easier. You're going to have to use less layers of paint to go over that. You also get very good brands just now in a lot of the larger DIY stores. Have started running their own range of furniture paint. There you can get a multitude of different finishes as well, and a lot of them you can actually take a bit of clothing or an item in and get them to colour match. So if it's something that you're trying to match in the house, that can be really handy as well. But again, as I said, for the purposes of today, if you've got an old tin of paint lying about the house, grab it and we'll use that. This chalk paint, you'll have to stir extremely well because of the composition of the chalk paint and the chalk content. The chalk falls down to the bottom. So when we open it, it's going to be very, very thick here, and it's going to almost look like water at the surface. So we'll have to mix it for, I would say, at least a good 2 minutes before you start using any chalk paint. And you have to use this every single time that you open the tin. Even if you just went for a coffee and you came back, mix the paint again, because it will change the colour slightly. So just be very aware of that if you're using chalk paint. I'll try and tilt this just so that you can see it slightly without me pouring it everywhere. Can you see it? So there you'll be able to see why we have to mix it so well, just because of the separation in colour. And you do really need to get right down to the bottom of the tin to make sure that the chalk's all mixed in properly. Scissors is always a good one for that, or an old pencil if you've got that lying about, or an old paintbrush, anything like that will do. So once that's thoroughly mixed through, the first place that we are going to start painting is your edges. You always start with your edges first. So in the case of this table, that means I'm going to start along here, up these little bits, and on the inside lines here. Following that, the next most important bit that you do on this item of furniture is the spindles. Now the reason for this is chalk paint dries very quickly. So if you're painting a spindle, you have to paint all the way around the spindle in one swoop. If you paint it half on this side and half on this side, you're going to see a line exactly where you stop. It is just the nature of chalk paint. Again, if you're using a different paint, I'm sorry, that's just excess information. But just be aware, if you are using chalk paints, that can be an issue, and make sure that you're thoroughly mixing it every time you go to use it. Now, this first layer of paint will look extremely patchy. It's supposed to, because it is your primer. You're not going to get full coverage, so don't be afraid, don't be worried, don't be concerned. We've got at least another 2 layers of paint to go on top of this. So as I said, round all the edges first, as you can see, and then we'll move on to the spindles, and then we will fill in the flat surface areas as well. Hi guys, and welcome back to the furniture upcycling class that has been brought to you by Transition Stirling. The stage that we're at now is that we've already done our prep on our furniture, and we started painting. So by this point you should have most of your first layer of paint on, which would normally be a primer, but due to lockdown, we'll just call it your first layer of paint. And as I said, it will look patchy. It won't be completely covered. It won't be the even coverage that you're hoping for, but this is what you're looking to get. Okay. And just so that you understand why we do this upside down, I thought just now was quite a good time for us to join back in. So the reason we start painting the furniture upside down is because when this is done, I can still turn it this way and then finish the top of the table and the rest around the sides that I could not get to when it was upside down. Had we started it this way, we would not then be able to turn it upside down without marking the top of the table and all the hard work that we've just done. So I'm just going to finish along the little edges on the top here and the tabletop as well. Now, not like the sanding, when you're painting, you're trying to go with the grain of the wood. So when you're sanding, you're going in circular motions, and when you're painting, you're trying to go with the grain. So I'll just show you that quickly, and then that'll be our first layer of paint done. Following the first layer of paint, we want at least another 2 layers before we put our sealer on. Now, that is where you decide if you would like to paint parts of your furniture different colours, if you would like to use different techniques, or if you all just want to paint it the same colour. It's up to you. We can mask sections off and paint just so that you're getting contrasting colours as well. Again, any questions, feel free to drop us a line and we'll be more than happy to answer them. So just to show you quickly, as I said, with the grain, so with this table, that means going this way. Now, what I could have done if I wasn't decoupaging and covering this is I could have just masked this area off here, but that's not needed because we're going to cover this completely with decoupage in one of the following videos. It's also worth me noting that chalk paint, if it's dry, will still wash off your clothes. If it's not dry, sorry, if it's still wet, it will wash off your clothes. If it's dry, it won't, it's staying there. So please either use old clothes if you're using chalk paint, or something that you don't mind getting covered. If you're using normal paint, it shouldn't be so much of an issue, but definitely worth taking on board if you're using your chalk paint. With the chalk paint as well, because of the high chalk content, it does dry quite quickly. So it can be very difficult to use if it's sunny. For this reason, you also don't want to overload your brush with too much paint because it does dry quickly. So that could then leave you lumps and very visible lines in whatever you're painting. I've covered the worktop here in just a bin liner. So if you have a bit of tap or a bin liner or something that you can put down to protect your surfaces, I thoroughly advise that you do so. And as I said, this is the first layer, so we're going to have another 2 after this. So this is the sort of coverage that you should expect to get. It's not going to be perfect at this stage. So do bear that in mind and don't be too hard on yourself when you're painting.
May I just ask whether after your 3rd layer of paint, then it should all be quite a solid colour all the way around?
Yes. Yes, after the 3rd layer of paint, you should have quite an even coat, depending on what painting techniques you're using. So, if you'd rather, or if you're doing dry brushing, it's going to have a different look, a different effect. If you've layered paints, or if you're doing any sort of distressing at all, then again, you don't need to be quite so particular when you're doing your paintwork. If you are going to do a lot of surface techniques or decoration techniques, you can get away with being a little bit more rough than you would normally be. But this is about the stage that we're looking for your priming coat. And from here, you're going to do 2 coats the exact same way and in the same way. It can be with different colours. And then I'll meet you back after you've done that. Thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for that, Michaella. That was great. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, we'll see you on the furniture upcycling workshops. As Michaella says, watch this space. We will be putting those up very shortly.